Welcome to this easy atmospheric Wildflowers Queen Anne's Lace watercolor tutorial. If you're new to my channel and you like this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and you will get notifications of my latest tutorials. So, shall we get started? It is the gorgeous photograph I'm going to be using as a reference. A link for this can be found in the description below, along with a full list of the materials that I've used in this tutorial and also colours and colour alternatives. So I hope you find that useful. I've also got Amazon links if you'd like to purchase any of the materials. I've masked out the Queen Anne's lace and I am now painting wet on wet with my size 10 brush. Just different sort of colours. I'm not copying the colours in the photograph. I'm sort of interpreting, and what I'm going to say to you is you probably, if you've got say like a room in the house where you want something decorative, you could actually do a large watercolour like this, quite sort of almost abstract, and use the colours in your room. And as I've done here, I've got sort of cool sort of pale greens and blues, and there's Schmincke's super granulation watercolours, which I bought recently. So they're really pretty colours, and I love them because they granulate so nicely. As you can see here, I'm tilting and I'm putting in some very dark Tundra blue here, wet into wet, letting everything drizzle down, hoping for a happy accident or two. So I'm actually just painting now damp into the wet surface with a very sort of dark greyish colour here. I'm using Tundra Violet, Tundra Blue and Tundra Green mixed together, and they create quite a nice neutral colour. And I'm using my size 2 round black velvet brush here to paint in damp into damp some sort of stems and things like that. These are going to be out of focus, so that's why I'm painting them damp into damp. So they've got lovely soft fuzzy edges, and so when I paint wet on dry later, these will be pushed back and it'll create some depth in my painting. And I'm giving this a little spatter as well, and a sprinkle of just ordinary table salt, which will soak up the paint to create some nice light, almost looking wildflowers. As you can see here, now my painting has dried, the light texture the salt has made in the background, creating the look of sort of Queen Anne's lace in the distance. I'm using my round size 2 brush, painting wet on dry some stems using the Tundra Blue. I'm also using a watered down Tundra Green as well to create some depth in the painting. This is a paler colour, so it's really quite nice and therapeutic. Do take your time with this as well, try to enjoy it. It's such a pretty painting to do, very decorative and very therapeutic to paint. As you can see there, I sprayed the surface and I've spattered some yellows and some turquoise, some of the Tundra Blue, using my size 2 brush, just having lots of fun to create some darks. Now the painting has dried, I'm just painting a few darker stems here to bring them forward away from the background, using a little bit of turquoise with a quinacridone rust. You can use burnt sienna and a cold blue like Prussian blue, and take your time. And if you think it's a bit too dark, you can dab off with your paper towel as well. But it's just, you can see how that brings that forward. And I'm just using a liner brush now, not my size 2. I want some really thin lines. I've allowed my painting to dry and I'm taking off the masking fluid using my paper towel. Just make sure your painting is completely dry, otherwise you'll smudge it or even tear your paper. So now I'm just filling in some darks in the background using some cool blues and cool greens using my size 6 brush, working wet on dry. Now the painting has dried, I'm just painting a few darker stems here to bring them forward away from the background, using a little bit of turquoise with a quinacridone rust. You can use burnt sienna and a cold blue like Prussian blue, and take your time, and if you think it's a bit too dark you can dab off with your paper towel as well, but it's just, you can see how that brings that forward. And I'm just using a liner brush now, not my size 2. I want some really thin lines. I've allowed my painting to dry and I'm taking off the masking fluid using my paper towel. Just make sure your painting is completely dry, otherwise you'll smudge it or even tear your paper. So now I'm just filling in some darks in the background using some cool blues and cool greens using my size 6 brush, working wet on dry. I'm using my spritzer bottle here just to soften some of the edges and actually let some of the paint sort of go over some of the Queen Anne's lace to create some shadow colours. I'm also at the top part of the painting with my size 4 brush. I'm stippling on some shadow colours on some of the Queen Anne's lace just to create a little bit of texture and some details. So you can really see how this painting is coming to life. I've allowed the painting to dry again and I'm using some white gouache by Winsor & Newton and stippling on some white paint, and it really does cover well. Look how it really lifts off there. So I'm just sort of finessing some of the shapes and details of the Queen Anne's lace. I've watered down the white gouache now and I'm just spattering here and there, wet on dry, to create some more textures and highlights and a little bit of sparkle to bring forward the Queen Anne's lace from that dark sort of muted grey background. I've mixed a little bit of the white paint in with some yellow and turquoise to make a much lighter colour, and I'm actually painting wet on dry with my liner brush, some very thin sort of stems and details here, again to lift away from the darker background. I find it's quite effective. And the longer version of this tutorial will be available on my Patreon membership with lots more tips and techniques and advice about colour mixing. I've also got a little bonus treat for the patrons. I've actually done this little Queen Anne's lace painting using Brusho as well. Details about the Patreon membership can be found in the top right hand corner or in the description below. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. And again, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for updates of my latest tutorials. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.